She married a cold, cruel billionaire and ended up carrying his child without him ever knowing. But what happens when he finds out? You don't want to miss the story. It's emotional, spicy, and full of twists. So hit that like, subscribe, and stay until the end, because this love story, it's going to break you and heal you.
I should have known better than to think a man like Vincent Rey could ever love anyone. The day I signed that contract, I told myself it was just business. 3 years of marriage. No questions asked. No messy emotions. In exchange, my father's company, on the edge of collapse, would be rescued by the king of Manhattan himself. Vincent got the image of stability his board demanded. I got silence, security, and a cold, marble man sleeping across the hall. But I lied to myself, because somewhere between the boardroom deal and the wedding aisle, my heart began to betray me. Our wedding night wasn't romantic. It wasn't even warm. He didn't look at me when he took the garter off my thigh. He didn't whisper sweet promises in the dark. He kissed me like he was claiming territory, possessive, dominant, almost cruel, and careful not to feel too much. I was just part of the arrangement. Still, his touch made my skin burn. Vincent never gave more than he had to. He was always composed, in control, until the nights when something cracked in him. He'd come to my room, wordless, eyes like ice on fire. His hands, strong, skilled, would slide along my skin with practiced hunger. Our bodies spoke a language we never dared translate. It was need. It was heat. And when he sank into me, he made me forget who I was. But in the morning, always the same. A note on the pillow, a door closing, the echo of his footsteps down the hall. Not once did he stay. I learned not to ask. I learned to pretend those nights didn't mean anything, that I could survive on scraps of him, that I didn't want more. But I did. God, I did. And I hated myself for it. I became good at hiding. Behind smiles at social events, behind expensive dresses he ordered for me but never noticed me wearing. I was his wife in name only. No one knew the truth, that behind the perfectly staged smiles and glamorous photos was a woman slowly fading. He never hurt me, not with his hands, but indifference, that wounds deeper than any bruise. Still I stayed, for 3 years, because the contract said I had to. But then, one morning, one that looked like any other, Vincent handed me a folder across the breakfast table. No warning, no expression. Inside, the divorce papers.
I believe our agreement has run its course. You'll be well compensated. The house in the Hamptons is yours.
He said, eyes not even meeting mine. That was it. No apology, no explanation. Just done. I signed. I didn't ask why. I didn't cry in front of him. But that night, when I packed my bags alone, I touched the side of my bed where he used to lie. Cold, just like him. And for the first time, I let myself whisper what I'd never dared say out loud. I loved you, you bastard. And the worst part, I still did.
Love is for the weak. That's what I told myself the first time I saw Elena Cooper walk into that boardroom, nervous, stubborn, and stunning in a cream silk blouse that clung too close to her curves. She was part of the deal, a piece of leverage. Marriage to her meant saving a company, avoiding a scandal, keeping the vultures on my board off my back. Nothing more. And yet, I remember the first time I touched her. It was mechanical, or it should have been. But her skin was soft, too soft, and her breath hitched when my fingers brushed the zipper on her dress. She didn't know it, but that sound broke something in me. I should have stopped, should have kept my distance, played my role, but I didn't. I came back, again and again, telling myself it was control, that I owned the situation. Liar. The truth is, I craved her. Not just her body, which, yes, was fucking addictive, but the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. Like she still believed there might be something decent behind the ice. Like she wanted more from me than I knew how to give. It made me furious. She made me furious. Because every time I left her bed, I felt something slipping through my fingers. Something I didn't ask for. Something I couldn't allow. So I buried it. I put on the suit. I signed the deals. I wore the mask tighter. I ignored how my chest twisted when I saw her curled up asleep, wearing one of my shirts like it meant something. I hardened until 3 years passed, just like the contract said they would. There was a clause, quietly buried in the back pages. After 36 months, either party could walk away. No questions, no drama. So I did. I served her the papers with my morning espresso. Didn't look her in the eyes. Didn't wait for a reaction. I told myself it was mercy, but it wasn't mercy. It was fear, because Elena Cooper was dangerous. She made me forget why I built my walls in the first place. Made me want to take her hand in public, not for a press photo, but because I couldn't stand another second not touching her. And that was weakness. That was losing. So I let her go. And yet, that night, lying alone in my penthouse, I couldn't sleep. I could still smell her on my pillow. Still hear her breathy moan when I pressed her against the wall last week. Hands tangled in her hair, mouth devouring every inch of her. Fuck, I should feel free. I should feel powerful. But all I felt was the silence she left behind, and something else I didn't dare name.
I didn't cry when I signed the divorce papers. My hand didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. I even managed a polite smile when I handed them back to him. But inside, I bled. It wasn't supposed to hurt this much. I told myself, over and over, that I was nothing more than a pawn in Vincent Rey's empire, that I should be grateful to be free, that the cold bed and colder silences were behind me now, that I could finally start over. So I did. I packed what little of me existed in that penthouse, mostly books and a few dresses I bought on my own. I left the jewelry, left the designer handbags, left the life that never really felt like mine. I didn't want anything from him, not even the house in the Hamptons he once said would be mine. He offered it like it was a prize, like ownership could make up for everything he never gave me. I walked away from it all, on purpose, because keeping anything from Vincent Rey felt like keeping a piece of the prison, and I wanted to be free. And I ran. New city, new job, Elena Cooper, waitress. It wasn't glamorous. My feet hurt. My back ached. My hair constantly smelled like grease and old coffee. But when I wiped tables and took orders with a fake smile, at least no one expected me to look perfect. No one expected me to pretend. No one knew me as her, the ex-wife of Vincent Rey. For the first time in 3 years, I could breathe. But breathing isn't the same as living. Some nights, when I closed my eyes, I could still feel his hands on me. Still hear his voice, low and rough in my ear, right before he'd take me on the edge of that damn marble countertop in his office. He never said my name with tenderness, but he said it, groaned it, bit it into my shoulder like he was trying to brand it into my skin. And I let him. I wanted him to, because those rare stolen nights, they were the only moments I felt like he saw me at all. Then came the missed period. At first, I brushed it off. Stress, new schedule, knew everything. But when the second week passed and I still hadn't bled, something cold crawled down my spine. I bought the test after my shift, still wearing my red apron with someone's spilled milkshake on the hem. Cheap brand, 2 pink lines. I stared at them in the bathroom of my tiny apartment. The walls were pale green, chipped. The ceiling fan wobbled when it spun. The light buzzed, and I cried, not because I didn't want it, but because it was his. Vincent Rey, the man who couldn't even look me in the eye when he ended our marriage, was now stitched into my blood, into my bones, into the little flutter of life starting inside me. I touched my stomach with shaking fingers, and for the first time, whispered the truth I couldn't face until now. This changes everything.
She was just gone. No drawn-out farewell. No dramatic meltdown. Elena Cooper signed the divorce papers, with that same graceful detachment she wore like a second skin the entire time we were married. She didn't fight for the penthouse, didn't take the car, didn't ask for the house in the Hamptons, even though I told her once that it would be hers. Hell, she didn't even take the sapphire earrings I'd seen her trace with her fingers when she thought I wasn't looking. She disappeared without a trace, and it should have made things easier. This was the plan. A 3-year agreement, a controlled partnership, and now it was over. Clean, efficient. But instead of relief, there was this thing sitting under my skin. A tightness in my chest that wouldn't go away. I couldn't name it, wouldn't dare. But I felt it every time I poured a drink alone in the penthouse. Every time I walked past the now untouched second closet that still smelled faintly like her vanilla and bergamot perfume. And I hated that I noticed. I threw myself into work, doubled meetings, tripled hours, closed a deal worth 9 figures without even blinking. My assistant told me I was being short-tempered, more than usual. I told her to take a vacation, maybe permanently. I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at me, because I still remember the sound Elena made when I gripped her hips too tight, the way her body arched beneath mine with every rough thrust, like she craved the pain. Maybe she did. Maybe it was the only way we ever touched each other, with force, with silence, with something twisted that resembled need, but never looked like love. She never asked for more. And maybe that's why I kept going back to her bed, because she didn't expect anything. Didn't ask for soft words or morning after kisses. She let me take what I wanted and leave before dawn, without guilt. But then she walked away, completely. And now, I couldn't stop imagining her somewhere else, with someone else, laughing, living, maybe even feeling something I'd never managed to give her. And that made something sharp coil in my gut. I told myself it was control, power, just the aftershock of losing my grip on the narrative. But that was a lie. The truth. She vanished without looking back. And I wasn't sure if I was furious because she was finally free, or because I wasn't.
The fluorescent lights above the ER waiting room buzzed like flies, and I could hear the clock ticking louder than my own thoughts. I hadn't even planned to come in. I already knew. The test I'd taken at home 2 days ago, those 2 pink lines had stared back at me like a scream I couldn't unhear. But I needed to be sure. I needed someone with a white coat and medical degree to confirm what my gut already knew.
6 weeks.
The doctor said gently, like it was good news. I nodded. I even smiled. And then I walked out like I hadn't just been told my entire life was about to change. 6 weeks. That means it happened before the divorce. One of those nights when Vincent was rougher than usual, when he slammed the door behind him like he hated being there, but still found his way to my bed anyway. I remember the way he touched me that night. Like punishment, like possession, like he knew it was the last time. And now there are 2 heartbeats inside of me. I sat in the parking lot of the hospital for 47 minutes, hands on my belly, not even sure what I was thinking. Or feeling. Shock maybe. Fear. But underneath it all, something fierce. Something maternal. A pulse of instinct that wrapped around me and whispered, this life matters, no matter how it started. So I made a choice. No calls. No messages. No lawyers. Vincent Rey would never know. No child of mine would grow up in cold silence and transactional love. My baby deserves better than that. Deserves affection that's real, not calculated. A home built with warmth, not marble and glass and tension, so thick you choke on it. I'll work double shifts. I'll take buses. I'll learn to cook on a budget, hold my belly through the night, and read every damn parenting book I can borrow. But I will not go back. No name on the birth certificate. No alimony. No visits. He let me go like I was nothing. And that's exactly what he gets now. Nothing.
The bell above the door gave a tired jingle when I stepped into the diner. Cheap place. Chrome stools, cracked vinyl booths, linoleum floors that had seen too many shoes and spilled too much coffee. Not where I'd usually go. Not where I belonged, but I needed caffeine, and my driver had gotten turned around in this no-name town. I told him to stop at the first place with hot coffee. I walked in, already checking my phone, already annoyed, and then I saw her, behind the counter, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, apron dusted in flour, a notepad in one hand, a pen in the other, and a swell beneath that pale blue uniform that hit me like a fucking freight train. She was pregnant. She was pregnant. My throat closed. My hand tightened around the paper cup the waitress had just handed me. I didn't feel the coffee spilling over the edge. Didn't feel the burn on my skin. All I saw was her, Elena, and her belly. She turned, laughed at something an old man in the booth said. That laugh. I remembered it. I remembered it under me, in my bed, in my ears while I kissed her skin and told myself none of it meant anything. I took a step forward. The pain in my hand finally registered. I dropped the cup. She didn't see me yet. She was talking to a couple at the counter, moving slowly, carefully, one hand always resting near the curve of her stomach, like instinct, like love. And that's when it hit me hardest. That baby, it had to be mine. My blood, my legacy, my fucking child. And she hadn't told me. She disappeared. She walked away, signed the divorce papers, and vanished like a goddamn ghost. And all this time she was carrying my child? I felt it rise in me like a storm, anger. Cold, sharp, electric. How dare she? How fucking dare she think she could keep something like this from me? My chest burned. My jaw locked. I didn't even know what I'd say, what I'd do. But I knew this. Elena Cooper had just made the most dangerous mistake of her life. She thought she could hide my hair. She thought I'd let her. She didn't know me at all. I waited in the shadows near the back entrance of the diner, my back pressed to the cold brick wall, arms crossed to keep them from shaking. Not from the wind, not from the cold, from the fury, from the chaos clawing through my ribs like a goddamn animal. She'd been walking around carrying my child for 6 goddamn months or more. The metal door creaked open. I didn't move, just watched her. Elena stepped out, pulling her coat tight around her. Same soft, tired elegance. Same defiant posture, even when no one was watching. Her hand drifted down over her stomach in that same protective way. That same unconscious tenderness I didn't deserve to notice. She didn't see me right away. Not until the click of my shoe echoed on the pavement. She froze. Her head jerked up, eyes wide. Elena. She didn't answer. Just spun on her heel and started walking fast. Too fast for someone that far along. Didn't she know she could fall? She kept going. I moved. Faster. Elena. Stop. She whirled around, hands curled into fists.
What the hell are you doing here?
I didn't blink, just stared at her stomach. How far along are you? Her lips pressed tight. 6 months? I guessed. More. She said nothing. I stepped closer. Is it mine? Silence stretched between us, taut like wire. Then quiet but clear.
Yes.
The world shifted. My chest tightened, my blood roaring. All those months of silence. All those nights convincing myself I was fine, that I'd closed the chapter, that she'd just been an arrangement. I stood inches from her, breathing in the faint scent of flour and vanilla and something soft beneath it that still reminded me of our sheets. You really thought you could have my hair without me?
It's my baby, Vincent. You lost the right to anything the day you gave me divorce papers.
She said, firm now. I laughed once, bitter sharp. You don't get to make that decision alone. She shook her head, fire flaring in her eyes.
I made it when you looked at me like I was nothing.
I stepped in again, closer this time. That child is my blood.
You didn't want a family.
Maybe I didn't. I looked at her stomach. But I'm not letting you walk away with my heir. Her breath caught.
So that's what this is. A claim.
I didn't answer right away. because part of me hated how right she sounded, and part of me didn't care. "You don't hide something like this from me," I said. "You don't get to decide that I don't exist." Her voice cracked.
I was protecting myself and this baby from you.
That hit deeper than I wanted to admit, but I didn't back down. I wouldn't. Not now.
I didn't want to get in the car with him. Didn't want to smell the scent of his cologne. Sharp and expensive, and him. Didn't want to be close enough to remember what his hands felt like on my skin, or how he used to breathe against my neck like he owned every inch of me. But I was tired. My back ached. My feet throbbed. And Vincent Rey looked at me like the earth had tilted off its axis.
"Let me buy you dinner. Somewhere close. Neutral ground."
He said, not a question. Never a question with him. My first instinct was to tell him to choke on his neutrality. But I nodded. Maybe because I hadn't eaten since noon. Maybe because part of me wanted to see what he'd say when there were walls around us, not just pavement and headlights. We ended up in a quiet diner a block away. Red booths, flickering overhead lights, the smell of fried onions clinging to the air like memory. I sat across from him, arms folded over the swell of my belly, trying not to let him see the tremble in my fingers. He looked at me like I was a stranger, or worse, like he was trying to remember the version of me he used to control.
"You should have told me. I had a right to know."
He said, his voice low-cutting. I gave a dry laugh. "You mean like I had a right to matter when you threw me away?" His jaw twitched.
"That's not what happened."
"Bullshit," I snapped, leaning forward. "You signed those papers like I was a business deal you'd finally closed, like I was disposable. And now you care." The silence between us was hot and heavy. He didn't look away, didn't blink. "I don't need you, Vincent," I said, throat tight. "I've been doing just fine without you. But my child," I caught myself. "Our child deserves better than a man who thinks love is weakness." And then his hand reached across the table. Slow, deliberate. I tensed, but he didn't touch me, just hovered unsure.
"May I?"
He asked. That stopped me cold. It was the first time I'd ever heard Vincent Rey ask for anything. I nodded once. He leaned forward, palm pressing gently to my belly. His hand was warm, strong, familiar in a way that cracked something raw, open inside me. And then, like the universe was laughing at me, the baby kicked. A firm, decisive movement. A stretch. A hello. Vincent froze. His mouth parted slightly. His eyes shifted. Something flickered there. Not calculation. Not pride. Not ownership. Wonder. Real, undeniable, devastating wonder. And just like that, my world tilted. Because for the first time in all the years I'd known him, across the silence and the sex and the cold goodbyes, I saw something break open in him. A glimpse of something I didn't know he could feel. And I hated how much it made me ache. How much it made me hope.
She wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't soft anymore. Not in the way I remembered. Not in the way I once mistook for weakness. There was steel in her now. A sharpness behind her eyes that said she'd learned how to survive without me. And maybe that was what gutted me the most. I watched her from across the small diner table, and for once, I didn't speak. Didn't bark orders. Didn't try to bend her back into the version I thought I wanted. Because I was too busy trying to understand how I'd missed her completely. Elena Cooper was glowing. Not just from a pregnancy, though there was that too. Some ancient, elemental beauty to it. The soft curve of her body, the flush in her cheeks, the instinctive way her hands curled around her belly, like she was already protecting someone more important than herself. No, she was glowing because she wasn't mine anymore. And somehow, that made her impossible to look away from. I'd built empires, destroyed competitors, crushed men who thought they could take something from me. But sitting across from her in that cracked leather booth, hearing the quiet rasp of her breath, watching her brush a loose strand of hair behind her ear with tired fingers. I felt like a man who didn't know how to fight this particular war. She didn't say much after the baby kicked. Maybe she didn't need to. Her silence spoke in volumes I wasn't ready to translate. But her eyes, they haunted me. There was pain there. Not just from the divorce or the betrayal. Deeper. Disappointment. She once loved me. I'd seen it. Felt it. It was soft and stupid and warm, and I burned it down without flinching. Now she looked at me like I was a stranger who'd cost her more than she could afford. I'd never wanted to be anyone's everything. Not even hers. But as I watched her shift in the seat, wince from some ache she didn't complain about, then smooth her hand over her stomach again like she'd made peace with doing this alone. For the first time in my life, I wondered if I'd become the kind of man no one could love. My throat was dry. My hand twitched toward my glass of water, but didn't move. I wanted to say something, anything, but all I could think was, she's stronger now. Fierce. Unbreakable. And I never even saw her. Never really saw her. And what scared me the most? She didn't need me. But I was beginning to understand that I might need her more than I'd ever admit.
He waited outside the diner the next morning, leaning against that sleek black car like he owned the goddamn sky. And maybe once I would have looked at him and melted. Maybe once I would have stepped toward him and felt lucky to be chosen. But not anymore. Not now, with his child kicking beneath my ribs and my pride stitched back together with trembling fingers. I pulled my jacket tighter, walking toward him with my chin high and my spine straight. He opened the door for me like he always used to, gentlemanly, confident, like the whole world bent to his will. "Thanks for the ride," I said, voice flat. "But let's get one thing clear." He arched a brow, that cruel, perfect mouth of his twitching like I amused him. "If you're doing this just to play daddy in public, to keep your name clean, don't bother. I don't need your charity." He didn't blink.
Elena, if this were just about charity, I'd have sent a lawyer in a check. I wouldn't be here.
He said, his voice low and steady. I climbed into the car without answering. The air inside smelled like him. Dark cologne, warm leather, sin, stupid body, stupid hormones. The drive was silent, the tension between us like a live wire. I could feel his eyes flick to me at every red light, like he was trying to read something written on my skin. But I didn't give him anything. No softness, no smiles. I couldn't afford to.
You've lost weight,
he said, finally, his voice tight. Morning sickness. I murmured, staring out the window, and working double shifts. He didn't reply, but his knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. The clinic was small, quiet. I registered my name and sat down with a magazine I didn't read. He sat next to me like he belonged there, like he had a right. And when the nurse called me in, I was ready to tell him to stay in the waiting room. Ready to walk in alone like I'd done everything else. But something in me hesitated, so I nodded once. Inside, the lights were soft. The monitor hummed. The gel was cold against my skin. And then there it was, our baby, on screen, real, moving, alive. I heard his breath catch before I felt mine.
Is that?
Yes. There's your baby. Healthy heartbeat. Strong.
The nurse smiled. I looked at the screen and felt my chest ache. Then I looked at him. Vincent wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the monitor like it was the only thing that had ever mattered. His eyes weren't cold, not calculating, not cruel. They were wide, stunned. Something close to wonder breaking through the walls he'd built so carefully around himself. And when he reached for my hand, hesitating, asking permission with nothing but a glance, I let him take it. Just for a moment. Just long enough to forget the rules I'd set. But then the image faded. The nurse cleaned my belly, and the moment was over. I stood up, pulling my jacket around me again like armor. He followed me outside, quiet.
I'll drive you home.
And I stopped, turned, met his gaze. If this is only about the baby, I said, voice sharp as glass. Then you can stay the hell away from me. He flinched, but I didn't wait for his answer, because some things needed to be said out loud, and some things he'd have to prove.
It started as something I told myself was logical. I booked the hotel not to be close to her, but to the clinic, to the diner, to wherever the hell she might go next with my child. That was the lie I fed myself. But the truth was that I couldn't stand being far from her, from them. I canceled meetings, rescheduled calls. My assistant thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. I sat near the window with a whiskey in my hand, shirt unbuttoned, tie loose, watching the place where she worked like a fucking criminal, like a man who'd lost all sense of what was appropriate or acceptable. She didn't know I was there, and I wasn't sure what I would have said if she had. But I saw her. I watched her move from table to table with that calm determination she wore like armor. Hair tied back, hand on her lower back, sometimes when she thought no one was looking. God, she looked tired, strong, unbreakable, and I'd broken her. The guilt clawed at me in the dark. That night, I barely slept. Just sat with the light off, city buzzing outside my window, her face burned behind my eyes. Not the woman I used to control with a glance, but the woman who had walked away, survived me, who was carrying a future I hadn't asked for, but now couldn't live without. And then came the scream, muffled, distant. I was shaving in the bathroom when I heard it, shouted voices outside the window. A name, her name. Elena. I ran, barefoot, shirt half buttoned, water still dripping from my hair. I slammed into the window just in time to see her being pulled toward a cab. Someone helping her. Panic in the way she gripped their arm. She was in pain. No thinking. No hesitation. I was out of the room in seconds. Down the hallway. Into the elevator. Punching the lobby button like it would make the damn thing move faster. Move. I barked when the doors opened, shoving past some wide-eyed tourist. The cab was turning the corner as I hit the sidewalk. I didn't see the license plate, just the flash of her pale face through the window, her hands on her belly. No. I jumped into the first car I saw, tossed 100 to the driver before he even asked where we were going. Follow that cab, I said, voice like steel. If you lose it, I swear to God I'll buy this whole fucking block and bury you under it. I don't remember breathing, don't remember thinking. Just the image of her in that cab, scared, hurting. My child, our child, still inside her. And for the first time in my life, I prayed. Not for power, not for victory, but for her, for them. Because that night, the hollow place inside me, the one I used to fill with control, with sex, with dominance and silence, that place wasn't empty anymore. It was full of something raw, terrifying, real. Love? No, not yet, but it was something close. And I was about to tear the world apart if anything happened to her. I didn't mean to stay, but something about seeing her hooked up to monitors, pale and exhausted, wrecked me in a way nothing ever had. Business deals, courtrooms, contracts. I could win any war. But sitting there, helpless, while Elena held her belly like she was holding the whole damn world together, that was the first time I truly felt fear. So when the doctor said she could go home with someone to watch over her, I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask. I just took her. Her apartment was small, clean, too quiet, like she lived in between breaths, like she didn't dare take up space in the world. She never mentioned where she'd been staying after the divorce. I never asked. That was the kind of man I was before. But tonight, I made her soup. Don't ask me why. I haven't cooked since college. I Googled it. Almost burned the damn kitchen down trying to make it taste like something she wouldn't spit back out. She watched me from the couch the whole time, silently amused. I could feel her eyes on me. It felt domestic and terrifying, but I liked it. I told her to rest. She tried to argue, and then she looked at me, really looked at me. There was no rage in her eyes, no fear either, just weariness, and something that felt a hell of a lot like surrender.
Thank you.
She said, I didn't deserve it, not after everything, but I wanted it anyway. She stood, moved toward me, one slow step at a time. I saw her hand reach for mine, small fingers brushing over my knuckles like they were testing if I was real. And then she leaned in. Her kiss was soft. No heat, no fury, just tenderness. It hit me harder than any slap. It was the kind of kiss that says I see you. The kind that makes your chest cave in because you know, deep down, you don't deserve it, but you want it anyway. When her lips parted, I leaned in deeper. When her hand slipped under my shirt, I let it. When she looked at me like I was the only man in the world, not Vincent Rey, the CEO, the cold bastard, the ex-husband she once hated, I lost whatever fight I thought I was still in. And somehow, without a word, we ended up in her bedroom. I helped her take off her cardigan. Her tank top followed. The curves of her body were different now, fuller around her, beautiful in a way that made my throat close. She hesitated, covering her belly with her hands. I dropped to my knees in front of her. Don't, I whispered. Don't hide from me. I kissed the curve of her stomach, felt her inhale sharply. Her fingers slipped into my hair, and when I looked up at her, I saw tears in her eyes. We undressed slowly, carefully. I kept my hands gentle, my touch reverent. I helped her lie back gently, propping pillows behind her to support her. My hands never left her. She watched me the whole time, and I felt something inside her crack open when I cupped her belly with both hands, like it was fragile, sacred. Then I moved over her. The first touch was tentative, exploratory, fingertips tracing the edge of her breast, down the side of her ribs. She arched slightly, needy but hesitant. I kissed her collarbone, her neck, the hollow of her throat. When I finally slipped inside her, I couldn't hold back a groan, not from hunger, but because it felt like coming home. She was warm, tight around me, her breath caught with every inch. We moved slowly, instinctively finding our rhythm, her guiding me, one hand gripping my shoulder, the other steadying against the mattress. I took my time learning her again, adapting, worshiping. No rough words, no frantic thrusts, just connection, rhythm, us. Her hands tangled in my hair, my lips trailing down her neck. I whispered her name like a prayer, and she moaned mine like she was remembering something she'd locked away. I held her hips with care, mindful of her belly, moving deeper, slower, reverent. When she gasped, trembling around me, her climax rolling through her like waves, I buried my face in her neck and let myself follow. We stayed tangled like that for a long while, breathless, quiet. I hadn't just made love to Elena tonight. I'd felt it, all of it, the pain, the fear, the history, and the hope I never thought I deserved. She was asleep now, her head on my chest, one leg thrown over mine, her body heavy with exhaustion and trust. And I knew, in that quiet, aching moment, that this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of everything.
The morning light crept in softly, spilling through the sheer curtains like a secret. His breath was warm against the back of my neck, his arm heavy across my waist. Like even in sleep, he didn't want to let go. I stared at the wall, wide awake, and drowning. The sheets still smelled like him. My body still ached from him. But it was my heart, my traitorous, fragile heart, that hurt the most. Because I knew how this ended. Vincent Rey didn't stay. He didn't do mornings after. He didn't unpack feelings or commit to forever. He made promises with his mouth and broke them with his silence. And last night had felt like too much. Too good. Too real. His fingers moved slightly in sleep, tracing the swell of my belly like he didn't even know he was doing it. It should have comforted me, but instead it terrified me. I slid out from under him slowly, careful not to wake him, careful not to let the cool air or the truth startle me into tears. His shirt still hung from a chair, so I pulled it over my body again, his scent wrapping around me like a ghost I couldn't shake. I stood in the tiny kitchen, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee I hadn't even sipped yet, staring out the window like I might find an answer there. Instead, I found him behind me. Hair messy, eyes still heavy from sleep, bare chest, the memory of his mouth everywhere on my skin.
Elena,
He said softly. I flinched. Just once. Just enough for him to see it. I thought you'd still be asleep, I said, keeping my back to him.
I woke up cold.
I swallowed hard. Maybe that's a sign. He stepped closer, but I didn't turn. I couldn't.
Elena,
Don't. I cut in, voice sharp. Don't do that thing where you look at me like last night meant something more. You were here. You said things. You held me like you gave a damn. But I know you, Vincent. You'll leave. You'll find a way to ruin it. You always do. He was quiet, and it was the kind of silence that hurt more than words. I just need time, I whispered, finally turning around, my arms crossed tight over my chest like armor. I need space to breathe. His jaw tensed. His eyes dropped to my belly, then back up to my face.
after last night, you want me to pretend it didn't mean anything?
He said, voice low. No, I said, even though everything inside me screamed yes. I want you to pretend you don't love me. Because if loving me is going to end the same way, if it's going to hurt again, then lie to me. Say it meant nothing. His eyes darkened, jaw clenching so tightly I saw the muscle flicker.
You really want me to say that?
I nodded once. Firm. Fragile. He stepped closer until he was inches from me, until his voice dropped like a weight between us.
Fine. It meant nothing.
My heart cracked clean down the middle, and still I didn't move. Still I said thank you. But he didn't leave. He stood there, staring at me like I'd just set fire to something neither of us knew how to rebuild. And I stood there, pretending my hands weren't shaking, pretending the baby inside me hadn't just kicked hard, like it could feel the storm between us. Pretending I wasn't already in love with a man I might never be able to trust again.
She asked me to pretend I didn't love her. So I did. And then I left. Not because I stopped caring, but because I didn't know how to stay without breaking her. Because the truth was, I didn't know how to be loved. Not really. The road back to my hometown always felt longer than it should have. Maybe because I spent most of my life trying to outrun it. The fields looked smaller now. The sky grayer. Everything had a layer of dust that only time could leave behind. But the ache in my chest, that was new. I parked in front of the house I grew up in. The porch sagged more than I remembered. The paint had faded, and my mother was already standing in the doorway like she'd been waiting for me all these years.
Vincent,
She said, the softest edge in her voice. I nodded, swallowed hard. Hey, Ma. We didn't hug. We never had. Not really. But she let me in, and that was enough. The house smelled like old wood and lemon cleaner. She made tea without asking. I sat at the table, staring at the familiar chip tile I used to trace with my fingers when I was a kid, when I needed something solid to hold on to.
I saw the news about the divorce.
She said after a long silence. I didn't answer right away, just stared at the steam rising from my cup. She is pregnant.
I didn't know. No one mentioned that part.
She added, quieter this time. I nodded slowly. She is over 6 months now. Her eyes widened, blinking like she'd misheard.
And it's yours?
My chest tightened. Yes,
Jesus, Vincent.
I know. She looked away, her fingers tightening around the mug.
Why didn't you tell me?
I let out a breath, rubbing the back of my neck. I only found out she was pregnant a few days ago. Her head snapped toward me.
What?
I didn't know. I repeated, quieter this time. I didn't even know how to handle it myself. I was angry, confused, afraid. I didn't know what I was doing, Ma. Still don't. She studied me carefully, and something in her expression softened.
She looked strong in that interview, even hurting, even alone. She looked like she loved you.
She said finally. My jaw tightened. Yeah, she did.
And you still lost her?
I let out a breath. Rough. Bitter. No. I pushed her away. My mother watched me over the rim of her mug.
Why?
I opened my mouth. Closed it. Tried again. I don't know how to love right. I always think it's going to vanish. That I'll mess it up, or she'll leave, or... My voice cracked. Or if I hold it too close, it'll disappear. She didn't say anything for a while. Then she got up and went to the old drawer near the sink, pulled out a photo. One I hadn't seen in over 20 years. My father. Me. I was 5, sitting on his lap, grinning like the world had never taught me fear.
I found this last year. Thought you might want to see it.
I stared at it, and something inside me cracked. He left us a year after that photo. Left me with questions I never got answers to. Left my mother with the heart she stitched back together without anyone's help.
I watched you become him. Strong, smart, cold, always in control. And I told myself it was the only way you could survive this world. But love, Vincent, love doesn't survive where control lives. You have to let one go.
She said softly. I sat there, a picture trembling in my hands. She was right. Elena didn't leave because she stopped loving me. She left because I never gave her a safe place to love from. Because every time she got close, I locked the door. Every time she said she needed me, I made her feel like a burden. Every time she asked if I felt what she felt, I lied. Because I was scared of what that meant. That night, I drove past my old school. The tree I used to sit under during lunch. The playground where I broke my arm, falling from the monkey bars. Every memory carried a version of the boy I once was, lonely, closed off, too scared to need anything he might lose. And I made a decision. I was done letting that boy run my life. I was done losing people because I didn't know how to be kept. If she gave me another chance, I'd learn. I'd tear down every wall I built brick by brick. I'd show her that even men like me, men who never knew love, could fight like hell to deserve it.
The suitcase was already zipped when the knock came. A soft, measured knock. Like he already knew I wouldn't want to hear it. Like he knew I'd pretend I wasn't home. Even if the lights were on and the walls were thin, and I was terrible at pretending anything where he was concerned. I sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the front door like it might catch fire. Another knock. Then silence. Then his voice.
Elena.
God, my name and his voice still sounded like a promise I didn't dare believe. I should have stayed quiet, waited until he gave up and walked away. That would have been smart. Safe. But I wasn't safe anymore. Not from him. Not from this ache in my chest every time I thought about what we almost had, what we almost were. So I stood up, opened the door, and there he was, Vincent Rey. No tie, no walls, no armor, just a man with messy hair, a 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days.
I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to take you back, or force anything, or make demands.
Then why are you here? I asked, arms folded tightly across my chest. Because I was doing okay, pretending you didn't exist. He gave a humorless smile.
Were you?
My jaw clenched. I didn't answer. He looked around the apartment. Small, temporary, borrowed, and then back at me.
You're running again.
I'm protecting myself, I said. He nodded once slow, then stepped inside without waiting for permission. I should have stopped him, but my heart, my stupid, traitorous heart beat louder the closer he got.
I never told you why I'm like this. Why I push. Why I shut down. Why I can't hold anything good without breaking it.
He sat down on the edge of the couch like he'd done it 100 times before, like he belonged.
When I was 5, my dad left. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. I remember sitting on the porch steps, waiting for him to come back. For days. My mom stopped setting a plate for him after the first week. I didn't.
My breath caught. I didn't move.
She never said his name again. And I learned early that loving someone meant you had to be ready for them to disappear. So I built walls, made rules, controlled everything I could. Because if I held everything tightly enough, maybe it wouldn't vanish.
He looked up at me. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were raw, open.
But then you happened, and nothing about you could be controlled. You were sunshine and fire and soft edges, and I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to let it in without being afraid of losing it. I was too busy protecting myself from the one thing I've always wanted.
My throat burned. My fingers trembled against the edge of the table. And what's that? He stood, crossed the room. Slowly.
You.
He stopped inches from me.
Us.
His hand lifted, hesitating, and then settled gently on my stomach.
This.
I sucked in a breath, because there, beneath his palm, was the smallest kick. He looked down, stunned, changed.
I'm terrified, but for the first time. I'm more terrified of not having you than of losing you.
He admitted. Tears blurred my vision.
Elena, I know I've done everything wrong, but let me try again. Let me be the man who stays this time.
He said, his voice cracking. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. But when I stepped forward into his arms, when I let my head fall against his chest and felt his lips pressed to my hair, I knew. I wasn't running anymore. And maybe neither was he.
I asked her to come with me before she could make a decision, before she could tell me no. Elena, I had said, voice low but steady. Just a few days. No city, no pressure, no promises. Just you and me. She looked at me like she wanted to run, but something in her eyes, God, that's something, said yes before her lips ever did. And now we were here. The drive to the mountains was quiet, the kind of silence that says everything. I didn't need her words. Her presence was enough. The cabin sat at the edge of a frozen lake, tucked between tall pines and solitude. No staff, no polished marble, just creaking floorboards, a stone fireplace, and bed sheets that still smelled like cedar wood in winter. When she stepped inside, snowflakes melting in her hair, I realized I had never seen her like this. Out of her armor, out of my world. She looked at me with that guarded softness she tried to hide.
Why here?
Because it's quiet enough for you to hear the truth. She didn't answer, not with words, but she stayed. Later, with only the fire casting light, I told her everything. About the photo of me and my father, the silence in my childhood home, the way I learned to mistake distance for strength, detachment for safety. And she listened, really listened, her legs folded beneath her on the couch, her eyes never leaving mine, her body still but her heart wide open. I crossed the space between us like a man drowning walks toward air, slowly, needing it more than he fears it. Elena, I murmured, voice rough. I spent so long thinking love was a luxury I couldn't afford. But I'm done starving myself for something that's already in front of me. She blinked, a tear sliding down her cheek. I caught it with my thumb. I want you. Not because it's convenient, not because I'm lonely, but because loving you feels like freedom. And I want to do that. With no walls, no games, no defenses. Her lips parted, breath catching.
And if I say, yes?
I brushed my fingers down her jaw. Then I'll spend every night proving that you made the right choice. She kissed me first. Soft, searching, full of everything we hadn't said in months. I lifted her into my arms, carried her to the bedroom, and laid her down like she was breakable. But I was the one trembling. We undressed each other slowly. No rush, no urgency, just reverence. Her skin against mine made my breath stutter. Every touch was a conversation. Her hands telling me she hadn't stopped craving me. My lips telling her I'd never take her for granted again. I kissed her neck, her collarbone, the curve between her ribs. I mapped her body like it was a story I was finally ready to read with both hands. She moaned my name, God, the way she said it, and I felt it deep in my bones. Our rhythm wasn't fast. It was intimate. Her body arched into mine, welcoming me back like I was always meant to return. I held her face when we moved together, eyes locked, like I needed her to see everything I couldn't say. And when she came apart in my arms, whispering my name like a promise, I realized something simple and terrifying. I didn't want to own her. I wanted to deserve her. After she rested on my chest, fingers tracing the line of my ribs. The fire was low. The snow still fell outside, and I whispered in the dark, if love is a choice, Elena, then tonight, and every day after this, I choose you. Again, and again, until you never have to doubt it. She didn't say anything. She just held me tighter.
I moved back into the penthouse 2 weeks after the snow melted, not because he asked, not because I was trying to pretend things hadn't shattered, but because I felt something in that cabin, a man I hadn't met before, a man who didn't give orders, a man who begged with his eyes, not his fists. And when he said, I choose you, I believed him. I never unpacked all the boxes. Some part of me was still holding my breath. But he didn't rush me. Vincent, the man who once controlled every second of every day, just waited. He made breakfast, burnt toast, got flour on his shirt trying to make pancakes from scratch. He asked how I slept, looked disappointed when I lied. And he touched me differently now. Slower. No more urgency. No more war in his hands. Just worship. Just want 2 months passed like that. Quiet mornings, uneven nights, baby kicks that made us both laugh like kids. And then came the storm. It started around 2 a.m., the kind of rain that makes the city go silent. I just started to doze when a jolt of pain gripped me like fire. Vincent bolted up like he'd been shot.
Elena.
I couldn't even answer. I was already halfway to the floor, clutching my belly, gasping through the contraction. And just like that, everything we'd been preparing for hit all at once. He drove like a man possessed, one hand on the wheel, the other on my thigh, whispering,
You're okay. You're okay. We're almost there.
I don't remember most of the delivery, just the pain, the blur of lights, the heat, my body splitting open and my mind somewhere between rage and survival. But I remember his voice. I remember him holding my hand, not once letting go. I remember the panic in his eyes as the nurses shouted, the way he kissed my forehead like it was a prayer. And I remember the moment everything stopped. The baby cried, and he broke. I saw it happen, like a wall collapsing in slow motion. He just crumbled. Tears slid down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. He didn't hide. When they placed the baby in his arms, tiny, red, squirming, he looked down like he'd just touched a miracle. And for the first time in his life, I think he believed he deserved one. He whispered something to our son, words I couldn't hear. And then he looked at me, and I saw it. Not the CEO, not the man who once left me crying in a hallway, not the cold, unreachable shadow I tried to outrun. No, this was someone new. His eyes were soft, wet, lit up with something I'd never seen on him before. Love, not just for me, for this tiny life in his arms. This was a man reborn.
I didn't know I could feel this much. I didn't know I wanted to.
He said hoarsely, barely breathing. And right there, through the exhaustion and the ache and the storm still raging outside, I smiled. Because the man who once made me bleed was gone. And in his place stood the father of my child. The man who chose to love. Fully. Fiercely. Finally.
It took me 3 months to find the right words. 3 months of watching her fall asleep beside me, one hand always resting protectively near our son's crib, even in dreams. 3 months of discovering that love wasn't something I had to control or dominate. It was something I could give freely and still have more the next morning. I didn't tell her what I was planning. I waited, quietly, like a man who'd ruined enough to know that the most sacred things in life aren't taken. They're offered. The ring came last. Simple, timeless, a round diamond in a thin gold band. Nothing flashy, nothing cold, just right. But the promise behind it, that was everything. It wasn't about trying to fix the past. That contract we signed years ago, that wasn't love. That was me hiding behind power. What I wanted now, what I needed, was something messy, human, and completely hers. So I planned the night. A quiet dinner at home, baby monitor on the table, candlelight flickering off her skin like it couldn't help but worship her. She wore a soft black dress that fell off one shoulder. No makeup, just that glow she carried ever since becoming a mother. I burned the damn risotto, but she laughed like I was the funniest man alive, and I fell for her all over again. After we ate, we sat on the couch with a bottle of wine and her bare feet in my lap. I traced my fingers along her ankle, watching her eyes drift shut from the warmth. And then I said her name, Elena. Her lashes lifted. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the box, but I didn't open it. Not yet. I don't want to make you a promise in paper or legal terms this time. I'm not asking as a CEO, or as the man who used to think power was the same thing as love. I set the box on a coffee table untouched. I'm asking as the man who wakes up every day wondering how the hell he got this lucky. As the father who still cries when our son smiles in his sleep. As the man who wants to grow old watching you walk around the kitchen barefoot, humming songs you don't remember the lyrics to. She stared at me, silent, stunned, soft. I want everything with you, Elena. The good and the bad. The sleepless nights. The silly fights about who used the last of the coffee. I want your sarcasm in the mornings and your moans at midnight. I want you beside me when I fail. I want to be beside you when you win. I reached for the box, finally opening it. Her eyes went wide. I want to marry you again. No contracts. No clauses. Just you, me, and this stupid little ring. Her breath caught. I want to be your husband, your partner, your best friend, your home. She didn't answer right away. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled. And when she finally leaned forward, kissed me slow, deep, full of tears and heat, I didn't need the words. Because sometimes, real promises aren't made with signatures. They're made with hands that don't let go. With lips that say stay, even when no one's speaking. And that night, in our imperfect, beautiful chaos, she said yes.
The sound of tiny feet pounding across the grass pulled my attention from the coffee I'd forgotten to drink. Again, I watched from the kitchen window as our son ran through the late afternoon sun, his laughter echoing through the yard like it belonged to another world. One lighter, one gentler, one I never thought I'd live in. Vincent was right behind him, barefoot, laughing, holding one of those plastic bubble wands, blowing shimmering spheres into the breeze with an expression I'd only ever seen on other people's husbands. The man who once barked orders through gritted teeth, who wore silence like armor, now made soap bubbles and roared like a dinosaur at bedtime. It undid me. Every time, I leaned against the counter, my fingers grazing the edge of the marble as my eyes locked on them. 2 years. 2 years since he took my hand in that same cabin where everything began to change. Where I forgave him. Where he asked, not demanded, but asked me to stay. We married in that place. No guests but the mountains, the trees, and our son, who threw flower petals he kept trying to eat. I wore a cream sweater dress and muddy boots. Vincent wore a suit jacket over a black t-shirt and looked at me like I was every vow he never thought he'd make. And now here we were, in a house we chose together, on land that didn't scream wealth or legacy, just us. I saw him scoop up our boy and spin him around, their laughter rising in tandem. My throat tightened. That man, my man, used to flinch at the word love. Now he whispered it across my skin at night like a prayer. And tonight, I was going to break his heart open all over again. I pressed a palm to my belly, still flat, still silent, but not for long. Twins, 2 little heartbeats, 2 chances to love, 2 shocks we never planned for, but already couldn't live without. I hadn't told him yet. I was going to wait until dinner. His favorite homemade mushroom ravioli and that red wine he says tastes like your kisses with attitude. I was going to slip the ultrasound photo into a linen napkin. Let him unfold it. Let him feel the weight of it all. Let him know we were about to double the chaos, double the midnight feedings, double the love. I smiled, unable to stop the tears that came with it, because I wasn't crying for the babies. I was crying for the boy in the garden, the man on the porch, the life we built from ashes and contracts and pain, and turned into something tender, beautiful, and completely ours. Vincent looked up, caught me watching. He grinned, then mouthed,
Come out here, Mrs. Cooper.
not a command, just a tease. A reminder that love now came in soft tones and open doors. I walked out to him, toward the sun, the soap bubbles, the boy, the man, and the future swelling quietly inside me.